you so much.
It's on.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our panel today. You may have heard that it is sad that this year is going to be one of the slowest years for the global economies. The World Bank has cut its 2024 global growth forecast from 2.7 to 2.4% in the latest Global Economic Prospects report for 2024. So we're here today to discuss how this situation impacts the end users and CTV viewers and how they in turn project those changes onto us. Therefore, if you represent a brand or an agency, this is basically a panel where we will discuss how you can win your client during this time of recession with the help of AVOD and FAST services. So my first question is just for those of our attendees who are new to this topic, how do you define and distinguish AVOD and FAST services in one sentence?
One sentence, that makes it hard. I'll just quickly do an intro. I'm the UK MD for Index Exchange, and for those of you who don't know, we are a sell-side platform, so a technology platform within the ecosystem, just so that makes sense where my points come from. In terms of definitions, I think the difference between AVOD and FAST comes down to really the way the content is distributed. So FAST is free ad-supported TV, and it's accessible through a schedule, so pre-planned schedule. So think of it like the digital version of linear. And then AVOD is advertising video on demand, which the clue's in the name there. Essentially, it's content which is available on demand to the user. So they have a library of content, pick and choose what they want to watch. Essentially, that's the difference between the two.
I think if I can just add to that, I mean, that's probably the right definition. I think when we were preparing the panel, I mentioned how the acronyms absolutely, make my blood boil. We have a lot of them, and in different countries use different terms as well. It's all the same thing, right? It's free streaming, and I think the lines are getting very blurred. I think in 2 years' time, if we have another panel, we won't be using those terms, and I'm glad we won't. Probably the main difference, though, from a viewer behavior standpoint between FAST and AVOD, so FAST as in linear channels streamed, and AVOD, which is on-demand content, we are looking, and some of you in the room, you can recognize, I've been doing a lot of work on attention. The levels of attention are slightly higher with on-demand programming compared to live linear programming, with some exceptions, obviously sports and sometimes news. And it's probably because AVOD is a more, I suppose, active, viewers are actively looking for content that they want to engage with, so they're less passive with the viewing experience. So that might be the only, for me, from a viewer standpoint, the main difference between AVOD and FAST, in terms of the pipes, how we buy it, the type of inventory, this is actually the same.
Thank you so much. And, we're witnessing a growing popularity of the AVOD services among users. And according to Deloitte survey, 44% of people have already refused from at least one paid service during the last 6 months. And about 59% of users are happy to watch a few ads an hour in exchange for a cheaper or even free subscription. And all of us have witnessed the popularity of Netflix ad-supported plan. So my question is, it is believed that more AVOD services and viewers would mean a larger audience base to target and reach for the advertisers. Would you agree with this assumption?
Okay. So is it bringing more audience and reach? Is that the question? Okay, perfect. So I think the short answer is more advertising-supported channels inventory means there's lower barriers to entry for viewers. So by default, that does open up a much wider audience potentially for the buyers. I think what just sort of hearsay that I've heard around the Netflix piece going to ad-supported tier, I think there's a lot to learn about where you're setting the pricing barriers, first of all, the pricing levels. What I think they've seen is that the majority of people who already had a subscription with Netflix remained on the subscription service, but new customers coming in tend to be favouring more towards the ad model, and that's reflective of the environment as well. So the theory is that with more ad supported, it opens up the wider audience, and that is obviously where we should be getting to. The trouble, and from my point of view on the tech side, is that the audience is actually quite dark. So there's not a lot of signals that get passed. So the buyer is actually going from an experience of buying either on linear, with the parameters that used to be, the KPIs on that piece, versus anyone who's buying programmatically, where there is like a ton of metrics that you can look at. You then almost kind of come into this middle space where you have an incredibly high quality environment in which to advertise to your users, but you don't have that much information available on them. So there is no kind of connecting identifiers, and it's just the signals are there to be passed. So broadcasters do have information about the genre, obviously the channel, the series, episode, etc. But that's not being passed today in the bid request. And I understand why, because there's a bit of hesitancy from broadcasters that by sending all of that, it may well cannibalize their direct sales efforts. But we need to get to a point where there is at least a bit of a standard in what is being passed in those signals. We at Index have done now working quite a lot within the CTV space, particularly in our US business, and we're seeing that genre is really like the standard. Okay, so that's becoming almost a table stake, which is good. It's like one step closer to getting more granularity around who you're actually targeting or advertising to, but it's just the first step in what needs to be many, many steps to get to a point where you have that optimum balance, because ultimately we're trying to maximize yield for broadcasters, make sure that they are able to fund their high quality content, and also give brands the access to the inventory that they want to access, and that they can see they're targeting the right people.
Absolutely agree with you, Sara. I think we're starting to see, you mentioned the US, more and more work done from the contextual side of things. There are companies like Aris TV that we're working quite closely with in the US, and they're trying to expand in other markets where they're using AI to analyze the content, the context, and the sentiment of a video. So effectively to kind of try to bring more signals than what we normally get from broadcasters. They're pretty limited. I mean, it's hard. I'm sure you understand that analyzing context of a video is not as easy as a text on a website. And so they're doing a pretty good job at it, and allow us to create IDs around context, which then allows us to target, actually to bypass the challenges that we're having now with the lack of PI data. The device IDs obviously are going to be a thing of the past. So we need to find better ways to reach our audiences, and context is definitely a way to do that. So I think we'll get there. It's going to get better. I think your original question was, are we getting more eyeballs? From an advertiser standpoint, I would say yes and no. It's obviously helping to see more streaming inventory that is, advertising supported. But we need to keep in mind that, again, back to the US, which is a market that is probably ahead of the game in terms of viewing behaviors by probably 3 to 4 years. Omnicom did a piece of research over a year ago that analyzed the loss of ratings on linear television in terms of for advertisers. So looking at the reduction in available minutes of advertising that advertisers can buy, because people are watching less and less linear TV and more SVOD and AVOD. And the reality is, for 10 ratings that advertisers are losing on linear TV in the US, they're only able to buy 1 rating back on streaming, because you have a lot less ad load on those services. At a maximum, you get usually 7 minutes of ads per hour on those AVOD platforms. As you know, in the US, the ad loads are very high on linear TV, up to 17 minutes. So we are still shortchanged. It's going to get better, and especially when we can get better signals to better match our audiences with the inventory. But at the moment, I would say, yeah, it's not a very clear-cut answer I can give you, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you so much. And as for other big names that are going to enter the market, do you have an idea who's the next to enter this game?
So that's also a challenging one because at the moment we are seeing more consolidation rather than new entrants. Some of the new entrants, I think, are finding it very difficult right now. What I would say probably when it comes to FAST, we're going to start seeing, particularly in Europe, probably in the UK, the likes of Sky and Virgin Media or Canal Plus in France will start offering those FAST channels. They won't really have much of a choice because, especially when you take Sky as an example, they've done a great job in the UK at trying to own the TV environment. So when you have Sky Stream or Sky Glass, you will usually turn on your TV and access your content via Sky. So companies like Sky are going to prevent viewers from being tempted to look for content elsewhere. And I think having fast channels as part of their lineup, I think Virgin are actually doing this. They've made an announcement, I think a few days ago. They're doing a deal with Pluto, and they're going to start integrating some of the Pluto channels into their regular EPG, right? So again, the lines are getting blurred, but I think we're going to see more of those players getting into the fast game. And of course, I think probably the elephant in the room is probably Google, right? Android TV. I would expect they will very quickly offer fast channels as well as part of their strategy to own the viewers, the experience to be that gateway to the content. Consolidation, I think that's a pretty... Are you guys recording this? We need to be careful here. I mean, we know in the US, right, if you take Netflix, Amazon and Apple out of the way, when you look at the legacy players, so we've got ABC, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Comcast, I think everyone agrees that those 4 players will probably become 3 at some point. Now, it's probably not the best environment to have those discussions, but we know, for example, Paramount are bleeding money, but they've got good content, they've got good IP. Comcast, on the other hand, are doing better from a financial standpoint. They could make an acquisition. So again, I'm not, I don't have any insider's knowledge, but I think everyone can see that we've got too many players. So I think asking me if there's a new one coming, I think that's probably, for whatever new player, that would be very dangerous, a very dangerous game right now, because the streaming market is a bit of, it's a bit in a limbo at the moment. I'm sure we can see that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name names either, because it probably is being recorded, but totally agree. I think we're just going to see more consolidation, but this is definitely a growing area. So regardless of who the next name is, it's really important to make sure we're actually doing this properly, the right way, with signals, with clarity, with transparency, obviously keeping privacy top of mind as well.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. It seems that we are running out of time, and we have some questions from the audience.
Yeah, would anybody like to take the opportunity to ask a question to this fantastic panel? You can put your hands up. I'll start running around like a maniac. Very quiet. The coffee's not kicked in yet.
Whilst
do we have shy Tories?
Thinking of a question, can I just say one thing? Just so then I've made sure I said it, which is about gaps in the market today. So we've talked about signals. The other thing is actually around ad podding, which is the kind of CTV name for commercial break. At the moment, the majority of the industry is working on the OpenRTB Protocol 2.6, which is a great protocol, but was written before CTV was even a thing. And as such, what we're doing is not really being efficient at all in the way that broadcasters are able to send bid requests and ad pods through to SSPs and DSPs. There is loads of duplication, loads of competitive clashes. There's missed opportunities. We've all been watching something where you either see the same ad time and time again, or you see like, we're coming back, bear with us, we'll be back shortly. That's obviously a missed opportunity there. So in order to excel that, the good news is that there is a solution, which is the next version of OpenRTB, which is 2.6. It has the protocols in it, which will mean that this ad podding process becomes super efficient. It's greener, it's better for everybody. And what Michael, like you mentioned earlier, was this all relies on collaboration across the industry, though. So if we get the fundamentals right, we have got so much opportunity to grow much faster than we are today. I know the numbers look good so far for advertising and CTV, but think what it could be if we were all operating on the same standard and being super efficient in that process. So collaboration.
Very insightful.
Yeah, thank you so much for your for sharing so much valuable information to our audience today, and thank you so much for coming and joining our session. So hope to see you next year at the same place.
Without the acronyms.
Less queues, longer, shorter queues.
Definitely.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.